With DC's next reboot, fans are wondering what exactly happened to the abandoned Man of Steel 2. After nearly a decade in the role, Henry Cavill's tenure at Warner Bros. Superman on the big screen has officially come to an end. But why did this happen? What was the plot of the cancelled Man of Steel? Don't worry, dive with us as we sum up everything we know about the never-born Man of Steel 2. Henry Cavill's Superman sequel, Man of Steel 2, was tragically cancelled in the months surrounding the reveal of James Gunn's DCU. Cavill's depiction of Superman has been largely lauded ever since he debuted in 2013's Man of Steel, after which he reprised his role in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and most recently Black Adam. For his part, Cavill was also a fan of the role, with his departure being one of the more controversial consequences of the DCU's existence. It wasn't, of course, always supposed to be this way. Man of Steel remains one of the DCEU's most successful movies, which practically necessitated a solo sequel for the titular hero. Instead, the ill-fated Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice saw him share the screen with the Caped Crusader, with middling to poor reviews, spelling the beginning of the end for the DCEU, as it became an early example of the DC's mismanagement of these beloved IPs. Still, Man of Steel 2 was planned right up until DCEU's death knell. Man of Steel 2 entered the planning stage around 2016, where it remained for several years following the release of Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, in which Superman notably died. Justice League, which resurrected Superman, was then released in 2017, facilitating Cavill's return in a second solo movie. It was after this that Cavill confirmed that he would be returning to the DCEU via social media, which was then accompanied by an image of him in his iconic suit. It was around that time that Man of Steel 2 began development in earnest, with Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight reportedly in charge of the story. Had it gone ahead, the movie would have been released over a decade after Superman's first solo outing in 2013, sparking speculation over how the franchise would handle such a big gap. This led to some to believe it would comprise a soft reboot in a similar vein to Gunn's acclaimed Suicide Squad, which would entail recasting certain actors like Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Insiders revealed to The Hollywood Reporter that Man of Steel 2 would bring the iconic Superman villain Brainiac into the fold in this live-action cinematic debut. While Brainiac has made appearances in the live-action Superman shows Smallville and Krypton, he would have been the perfect villain for DC to work into the cinematic franchise had the movie gone ahead. The classic DC villain is off the wall enough to comprise part of a particularly compelling story, and certainly one that would at least fit into the brand new DCU narrative. Further details are scarce. Brainiac is known for attempting to collect all the knowledge in the known universe, flying a skull-shaped spaceship, and shrinking cities to sizes that he can fit into bottles. It is the latter tidbit that puts him in direct opposition with Superman, as he shrunk Krypton's capital city, Kandor, before attempting to do the same to Earth's cities. Evidently, this would have helped to flesh out Cavill's Superman, as more of his Kryptonian heritage is dragged up and his protectiveness of Earth develops. Unfortunately, however, Knight's pitch was reportedly rejected. Why was Man of 2 cancelled? It didn't take long before Cavill's confirmation of a grand return was contradicted by James Gunn in late 2022, as the newly instated co-CEO of DC Studios revealed that Superman would be rebooted. Cavill would later regrettably confirm this, with the amicable clarification that James Gunn and Peter Safran have a universe to build in which a younger Superman would appear in the earlier stages of his superhero career. Almost as soon as Gunn assumed the role in November 2022, Man of Steel 2 was scrapped. Given the decade-spanning gulf between Cavill's solo outings, this wasn't too surprising. Upon Gunn's assumption of the co-CEO role and his announcement of the DCU, speculation had already begun swirling around Cavill's continued involvement. before confirmation that a new actor would be taking the role in a straight reboot of the franchise instead of Man of Steel 2. Based on Gunn's purported inspirations for the new Superman legacy, it seems the DCU will instead explore a brighter take on the Man of Steel in a departure from Cavill's darker rendition. However, it will leave Cavill's legacy intact. The actor was replaced by Hollywood star David Corenswet, who will direct his own Superman legacy movie under the new DC Studios CEO James Gunn. Cavill has appeared in 5 DC films as a Kryptonian. However, he only had one film under his belt, 2013's Man of Steel. With James Gunn and Peter Safran's upcoming DCEU reboot, any hopes of a Cavill-centric Superman sequel are gone. After Cavill's hero briefly returned to the big screen in 2022's Black Adam, rumors of a Man of Steel sequel began to gain momentum. The project was written by Peaky Blinders screenwriter Travis Knight, with no director attached to the project at the time. However, hopes for this game were short-lived as its development slowed down. Warner Brothers didn't seem excited about the film's direction. Then, with the hiring of James Gunn and Peter Safran as co-CEOs, plans for Man of Steel 2 were scrapped in favor of a new Superman movie from Gunn himself. This ended Cavill's timeline as the hero, as the former DC actor wrote in a heartfelt Instagram post that DC and Warner Brothers, "There's a universe to build. I just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news for everyone. After all, I'm not coming back as Superman. After all, this was announced by the authorities. The studio announced my return in October before they were hired. The news wasn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a whole universe to live in. I wish them and everyone participating in the new universe good luck and happiness." The actor's replacement was later announced in June 2023. David Corenswet will take on the role, with Gunn and Safran choosing to bring in a younger actor to focus on the earlier part of his life. Superman, in his reimagined DC universe, Peter and I already have a DC team ready to go, which we couldn't be more excited about. We'll be able to share information excited about his first projects at the beginning of the new year. In the beginning, our story will focus on the early part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Cavill. What is Man of Steel 2 about? Plot details on a potential Man of Steel 2 are scarce, but there are a few interesting details for fans to explore. After Cavill's DC hero appearance, when he was cast to star in The Flash, he would have to face one of his enemies carrying Superman's most iconic character, Brainiac. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the Superman robot genius will be the main villain in Man of Steel 2. Besides that, the movie will probably have a lot of setup for a potential Crisis on Infinite Earth movie. Superman was supposed to be the main theme of this movie, and in fact, at one point, the group was billed as Superman. Yeah, I think the final movie will be C, very much like a Superman movie. The final chapter will have a large proportion of Superman ending the whole thing. The Crisis movie is a key element in the plans of DC's old leadership regime, serving as a farewell to the Zack Snyder era of the franchise. But all of that obviously never came to pass. So, will Henry Cavill's Superman ever return? Over the years, fans have learned to never say never when it comes to any particular comic actor reappearing at any given time. But for now, Henry Cavill's DC's return seems a bit far-fetched, even if Warner Bros. Wants the actor to return, but it remains to be seen whether he will agree to it or not. After taking on such a difficult role for a while, a brief return after thinking he was done with the character, and then eventually being fired due to a change in regime would not have been easy. We understand if Cavill seems bitter towards this character, the idea of one day becoming Superman again. After revealing that Gunn and Safran had decided to split, Gunn mentioned that he met with Cavill and discussed exciting possibilities for working together in the future. So, the door for Cavill's return may still be open, but it likely will not be as open as Superman. So what else can be the role? Comment down your predictions and do share the video with your DC buddies. For more movies and fun, hit the like and subscribe buttons.